So, you've probably heard about the cheap housing, relatively low cost of living, and easygoing lifestyle and thought, maybe I should move to Saskatoon. Well, here are 10 things you absolutely need to know before moving to Saskatoon. Hi, I'm Conor Palendat with Moulin Betcher Associates, and if you have any questions about the real estate market in the Saskatoon and surrounding area, all my contact info is below in the description. Let's get into it. Okay, so number one on our list here is the climate. This is probably the single biggest factor that might discourage a lot of people from moving to Saskatoon. You experience the extremes on both ends of the spectrum. So in the winter, you might get down to minus 40 Celsius. In the summer, you might get up to plus 30, plus 35 Celsius. So it's extreme, and really it is tough to kind of acclimate to because it's just not easy for the human body to go from that cold to that warm, in a span of a few months type of deal. So super important to make sure, obviously, that you're prepared for the winter. Winter jacket. I see so many people that are new to here, wearing just a soft shell or something like that. Maybe not have mitts, a toque, stuff like that. Good winter boots. Like you're going to need to have all of that ready, especially if you're arriving here in the winter to actually be able to live and not be totally miserable. But on the flip side, the summers are pretty nice. Lots of outdoor events, things like that, and the weather is good for that. Walking, hiking, all of that. So in terms of that, it's a positive. But in terms of how long you get that hot weather for, it's really looking like a couple months of the year is generally kind of what we're at. Okay, moving on to number two, the cost of living. So I'm going to put just some numbers up here on the side, just kind of to view. So we kind of have the 5 pillars here of housing, food, transportation, childcare, education, and health insurance. So when it comes to housing, obviously, it's going to be significantly cheaper than say Toronto, Vancouver, even Calgary is starting to get up there. So if you are renting, you're going to be like, okay, this is much nicer. Depending kind of what your wages are. The one area where you are probably going to pay more, if you're coming from, say, somewhere like that, is obviously utilities. Heating and cooling here is so important in the seasons. And so the cost of that is more. Obviously, the more extreme the temperatures get either direction, the more you're going to try to heat or cool yourself. And internet. So if you're coming from, say, the US or especially Europe, you're going to find internet and telecommunications costs in general are much higher than maybe what you're accustomed to. When it comes to food, groceries, if you're a family that's going to be, mostly cooking your own meals, eating in, somewhere that's $600 to $800 per month for, a family of 3, is kind of what you can expect. Obviously, this depends on your dietary preferences, eating habits, and all of that. Dining out has gotten more and more expensive kind of as the years go on here. So if you're, depending if you're people that like to eat out often or not, somewhere in that $200 to $400 per month, for the kind of a family 3 is probably, a safe bet that's the range you're going to be in. When it comes to transportation, Saskatchewan is very car focused. And so most people here will have a car. Costs and that are obviously going to depend quite a bit on what type of vehicle you have. We obviously have a provincial insurer, so in terms of our insurance costs, they are quite a bit lower than say BC or somewhere where it's private. Gas prices. If you're an American, you're going to be quite shocked. If you're European, it's a little bit more in line with what you're used to. And so that 150 to 250 per month, depending on how often you drive, what kind of vehicle you drive, it's going to depend quite a bit on that. Public transportation in Saskatoon, really it's just city buses. So depending what kind of pass you get, whether it's an annual, a monthly, or you just pay by ride, somewhere in that $75 to $100 per month for an adult is what you can expect. When it comes to childcare and education, obviously again, a little bit smaller of a city, so prices haven't jumped quite as much as they have in other centers, but demand is still quite high. So depending on the age of the child, type of care and hours needed, somewhere in that $800 to $1,200 per month, maybe more, is kind of what you can expect. Now, obviously, We have a government program now that kind of subsidizes things. So any licensed childcare facility can kind of be a part of this program, and it will offer $10 a day childcare to families. Obviously, in these scenarios, there is wait lists, so don't expect to just move here immediately and go, okay, yep, I'm going to get in, no problem. Make sure you're doing your research. School expenses, these kind of come off our taxes, so unless you're sending your kid to a private school, there's probably not going to be a ton of additional school expenses to look out for. When it comes to health insurance here in Saskatchewan and Saskatoon, we are covered under the Saskatchewan Health Authority. So everyone will get a health card. Obviously, if you're moving here, there is going to be a delay. Depending on your situation, 6 to 12 months to be eligible for a health card. And then from that point, once you apply for that, it could be another 4 to 6 weeks to get it. So in that timeline, you are going to need some kind of gap coverage. So really make sure you research what are the best options for that, and kind of figure it out from there. Once you do have that card, though, that's going to cover all your basic kind of, hospital visits, checkups, visits to the clinics to get a prescription, all that type of stuff. All of those are covered. What you aren't covered for is prescription medications, dental care, and vision care. So everyone generally either purchases or through their job has some kind of coverage that gives them, up to 100% coverage on those different things. Like a basic Blue Cross plan would be $50 a month, and I think that gets you up to about like 85% coverage. Okay, moving on to number 3, the job market. So Saskatchewan has actually a very diverse economy with lots of opportunities in especially agriculture, mining, and technology. So if you're in one of those 3 industries, you're certainly not going to have an issue finding a job. I mean, if you've ever even flown over or driven through this province once, you're going to see lots of farm fields. Kind of wheat and canola are some of our 2 biggest exports. On the mining side, potash and uranium are kind of the 2 big ones. So, I can see mining taking off, obviously, with the focus on nuclear in the next 50 years and us having uranium. So, if you're in a field that's working with those and those type of materials, obviously this might be a really good option for. When it comes to technology, the university has, lots of different research and development going on, and access to things that you can't get access to. We've got a synchrotron, and researchers from all over the planet come to use it. So something that's a really big draw here is obviously those types of facilities. And then even just on like app development, and kind of consumer facing apps, and those types of things. We're slowly growing. Obviously, we have a couple major companies like Vendasta that are out of here, but even, lots of tiny startups and everything based out of kind of the university area. And so really offering, I would say, fairly competitive wages for in Canada. I know lots of friends of mine who are in tech make really good wages, and obviously combine that with the lower cost of living from major centers. You can really set yourself up well for having a very comfortable life here. Number 4 on our list is the areas to live. So Saskatoon is kind of split down the middle by a river. So you're going to have kind of stuff on the west side of the river, and then neighborhoods on the east side of the river. I say the east side of the river is kind of more suburbs for sure. Kind of the quieter type neighborhoods. Whereas on the west side, you have your downtown core, lots of businesses, that kind of stuff, and you have to go further west from outside the downtown core to start hitting kind of suburbs again. So, depending on your proximity to work, your lifestyle, local amenities, choosing the perfect spot to be is going to be important. Now, the nice thing about Saskatoon is, you can pretty much get anywhere in the city in 20 minutes or less. Depending, obviously, as long as there's no road construction or an accident or something. So it's not as big of an issue as, say, if you're coming from a major center, but you are still going to want to do your research on each neighborhood and kind of figure out, which one might be the best for you. Moving on to number 5, which is the transportation. So navigating Saskatoon, like I said, is pretty easy. Saskatchewan and Saskatoon are both very car heavy. So, we We don't have a provincial kind of transportation system. We used to have a bus system that would take you from, say, Saskatoon to Regina or Swift Current or another smaller center. That is no longer. So if you are wanting to travel out from Saskatoon to, say, Regina, which would be the next biggest city, you are going to need a car, or, I know there's Facebook groups for rides and things like that, but, it is a little bit inconvenient that way. In the city, what you're going to have access to is the public transit system, which is city buses. So we talked about this in the kind of the cost of living scenario. That those are your options, and then obviously you're kind of beholden to if we get a ton of snow or if it's super frigid. There's going to be delays. So kind of making sure to familiarize yourself with the area and the transit system and what options might be best for you is going to be super important. Okay, next on our list is culture and recreation. So Saskatoon actually is a hub of culture and recreation, much to the disbelief, I think, of some people from maybe, Eastern Canada or major cities, where they think, it's mostly just farmland and, I don't know, hockey players. That isn't the case. There's tons of music, events, festivals, art galleries, and everything. We've got a nice big art gallery here that they built a few years ago, the Rime. It's kind of the biggest one here, has got us into, kind of high profile art magazines, everything like that. So, it's not like there's nothing here. So there's definitely an art scene. If you're a musician, there's lots of spots for music, live events, everything like that. The Sheepdogs, which are kind of a big Canadian band, are from here, maybe the most well-known right now. So there's tons of options, obviously, when it comes to sports. We've got a facility that can host hockey games. We've got a professional lacrosse team, basketball team, all sorts of stuff, concerts. So there is plenty of culture and recreation to be found here. Moving on to number 7, education. So for families or any of those pursuing education, it's always important to look into what there is. So Saskatoon has obviously lots of excellent schools and also the renowned University of Saskatchewan. We kind of have two school systems here. We have a public and a Catholic. You don't have to be Catholic to go to the Catholic, and vice versa. So you can go to either one of those. So really it's going to be picking, maybe what's closest to you, what might offer, if in terms of high schools, maybe what will offer the programs you're more interested in, the classes you're more interested in. But there's no shortage of options. Every neighborhood is pretty much going to have, one public, one Catholic within it. And so then just kind of whichever one is going to suit your needs the best is probably the one you should research and kind of go into. Number 8 on our list is healthcare. So we touched on it briefly, kind of about the health system and how it works a little bit. In terms of facilities, we have 3 kind of major hospitals in Saskatoon. So you're going to have St. Paul's Hospital, which is on the west side of the city. You're going to have City Hospital, which is also on the west side, but kind of the downtown area. And then you're going to have obviously Royal University Hospital, which is on the east side at the university. And then mixed in amongst those, you have various types of health clinics, mediclinics, your family doctors, physio, everything like that. So there is no shortage in terms of facilities. Obviously, wait times and everything, I think are a little bit overblown. You kind of hear news stories about how long it takes. They do follow a triage system. So if you show up to the ER with, I don't know, a broken finger, yeah, you're probably going to wait quite some time. But, it is certainly not as inefficient as you hear, in news stories. I know watching either American news or something like that, you might get kind of a bad picture of what you're looking at. Moving on to number 9, talking about community. So, Saskatoon, I think Saskatchewan in general is known for its friendly community aspects. Everyone here, kind of does give you a small town feel to the whole place. A lot of the people that now live in the major centers once did grow up either on a farm or a small town. And so it is kind of that very community, driven feel to things. So, it's obviously in terms of activities and everything, it's great to get involved in the community. No matter where you're from, there is a community for you. We have a very high Filipino population, Middle Eastern, I think even Indian as well. So, if you're from any of those countries, you are going to be able to find, kind of someone for you. Folk Fest is a really good one for that. So Folk Fest is going to allow you to kind of get exposed to some of these different cultures. There's pavilions you'll visit, and then kind of give you, so like Ukrainian is obviously a big one in Saskatchewan. Traditionally, lots of Ukrainians moved here years and years ago, and so that one's always a popular pavilion. We have Chinese, Japanese, German. There's no shortage of different cultures here, which is kind of the nice thing. So there's tons of community events all throughout summer, winter, that if you look into, you can really find a home for yourself. So moving on to local essentials. So in terms of what you're looking for, if it's shopping, grocery stores, facilities of different kinds, like I said, depending where you live, you might have access to a lot of what you need or want in your little geographic region. When it does come to shopping, kind of downtown is where you're going to be. The Midtown Plaza and various stores around it, which are kind of the hub for the shopping in the city. So grocery stores, downtown is lacking a grocery store, and it's been like that for a long time. So if you are, say, living in a downtown condominium or apartment or something like that, obviously getting your groceries will be a little bit of a challenge. So, it's important to figure out where these types of services are in the city, and which ones you might need access to, and kind of plan accordingly where and when you're going to need to get there. Okay, and there you have it. Those are the 10 crucial things you need to know before making Saskatoon your home. And if you're ready for a new chapter, I know Saskatoon is waiting with open arms. And if you have any questions about the local area, the market conditions, and anything like that, my contact info is in the description. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video.